Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Young Brando, and we're live from Los Angeles. We're going to talk watches, and there's a lot to catch up. Um, some of the auction houses posted their lots already for the Geneva auctions that are coming up, and the season is not too far away. As you know, Watches and Wonders is all the rage right now, but in this channel, we always have our own schedule, our own timing, our own pace. So we will focus on timeless pieces and not necessarily new releases. But if there are any new releases that you would like to talk about, I'm more than happy to offer my opinion. If you want to know what my favorite release so far is from Watches and Wonders, maybe I'll share that as we go on. But I thought we will, as always, start off slow and warm up a little bit with the Instagram. I've given you a couple of options in the poll, and you can always suggest something else. Those are the two I prepared, so I will be, I guess, more on point when it comes to that. In Eichen Zurich has a timed auction that they posted that has some really nice pieces. Sotheby's posted at least an initial few pieces from their Geneva auction that is coming up in May, and those are all extremely hot, at least to me. So we will most certainly talk about that. That auction is taking place in Geneva on May 12th, 2024. And the In Eichen auction timepiece Splendor that is going on right now is concluding on the 18th. And there are many other auctions that are going on even from the same auction house, right? Sotheby's has an online-based Hong Kong auction that is going on right now, for example, that we could explore. Phillips has just posted the lots from their upcoming Geneva auction. That's something else that we can't look at. But again, no rush. A lot of these things are happening in May. Maybe we should just focus on what's interesting right now, and maybe for that reason I might just go and take a look at LV. How are you doing, man? I'm wondering if are you asking about the 56175 TT, perhaps? The Royal Oak Championship, quartz powered. Nick Faldo's first collaboration with AP. Because I'm not sure if I know what the 56176 is. Let me check if I can find that. It is. Yeah, I'm almost sure that you are talking about the 56175, which let's bring it up. Let's bring it up and start talking with that. And you guys know I usually do this in exchange of a super chat, but we are starting things off, so no worries, not for this one's, but this was a limited edition that they had released. There was a really nice web page that someone prepared for this specifically. And I remember it even had that rare presentation box, of course, golf themed. Let's see if I can actually find that. Hmm. No, actually, I couldn't. Or was it this? Sotheby watches? No. No. Anyway, yeah, let's just look at the watch and talk about the watch, because that was actually a great listing. This is one of my favorite combinations, favorite renditions of the Royal Oak. The 33 millimeter Royal Oak, the kind of the most commonplace reference for that is this reference, 56175, is actually rather wearable. You would be surprised at the kind of wrist presence that this piece has, especially in precious metal or tantalum. As you guys know, tantalum is usually known for its relative heft and the difficulty that it involves to work with in terms of finishing. And in this case, they basically use a titanium case and integrated bracelet, rendering the octagonal bezel and the tapering interlinks in stainless steel. They have done this for the mid-sized Royal Oak as well, 14790. That's even more rare and carries what I consider to be an unconscionable premium. But if you find that at a reasonable price point, that could be an interesting option as well. The thing that the 56175 will have on it is the thinness, because arguably, you might say the 33 millimeter version with the quartz powered movement is more proportionally shrunk. The 14790 or the leather strap version of that 14800, those watches are not necessarily thick. Don't take me wrong. They are, I think, around 7.6 millimeters, I want to say. But man, the 56175 just sits so nicely and so close to the wrist, and I think it's even thinner than 6. So yes, you get something quartz powered, which many people don't necessarily prefer, but you get that classic Royal Oak look in a kind of shades of gray theme. Great application of two-tone, you might say, or tone-on-tone, with the Petite Tapisserie dial also mimicking the gunmetal gray shades of tantalum as a material. Of course, tantalum is having its second coming, is having its heyday these days, especially on the back of the success that François Paul Jean's chronomètre bleu has enjoyed over the years. But of course, AP has been using this metal, experimenting with this metal, especially in this sort of tone-on-tone and two-tone combinations. Another popular variation is tantalum with pink gold accents. I like them both, honestly, but this one is pretty special. The TT would be the ending of the reference. If you're a golf fan, I think the Nick Faldo angle it can't hurt, right? It might be appealing to you on that basis. Yeah, I really like this watch. I was actually quite close to getting it at some point, but I said, wait a second, wait a second. I have to, my first Royal Oak has to be at least mechanical, if it's not the Jumbo. But I've gotten very close to getting this, and I would highly recommend it. Um, find one in nice condition. Find one ideally that is recently serviced, because that's the biggest disadvantage of a quartz movement watch from a big brand like AP, like Rolex, with their Oyster Quartz series that is also making a strong comeback. You would probably want to send it back to the maker for the service, to the house for the service, and that costs an arm and a leg, especially when it comes to AP. So that's something to consider. I've seen these in the low tens. I think around 10 to 12 would be an absolute steal for this piece, especially if it's in good condition, if it's recently serviced. But if everything checks out, if it sings to you, if it hits all the right notes, and it's in stellar condition and it's recently serviced, you can go for a little more. And they would be marked on the case back accordingly. AP Tantal, for tantalum in a triangle, Royal Oak in the traditional font, Championship for that back-to-back US Open and Masters wins of Nick Faldo. It will have the AP case number and a number in the series. And of course, quartz inscribed as well. Oh, nice. Maldives. For the they might come up with a ceramic skeleton, I think. The they have been coming with different variations of the jumbo skeleton. Didn't they recently come out with the 204 in pink gold? I think this is what you're asking, right, Maldives? And it's nice to see you. It's been a while, man. I'm so glad you could drop by. Yeah, they just came out with this, if I'm not mistaken. So and I think it was just discontinued in stainless steel, if I'm not mistaken, and it came out with, no, sorry, they came out with the white gold version just now. And with the stainless steel gone, I can certainly see them bringing that in ceramic, because this is how things are going. Maldives, it's your world, and we're living in it. Things are getting more exclusive, more premiumized, as they say. And with the varieties they have now, which is white gold, yellow gold, and pink gold, with the stainless steel nowhere to be seen, I think the next one may well be like the black ceramic. I don't think that's too far-fetched. I think the time is right, you know, with the way they discontinued the black ceramic version of the double balance wheel as well, the 15407. They might just pull out something like the 16204 in a black ceramic version. Honestly, I like how AP does pink gold, but I can certainly see the appeal of ceramic. I wanted to hate it. You know, I really wanted to make sure I don't like it before I could actually hold one of those in my hand, and that was December of 2022 when I was back in New York. And it was in the Philips auction preview where I got the chance. And I'm trying to see where I have a quick video, perhaps. Did I not? Was it not a proper reel? Interesting. Honestly, I like the architecture of the double balance wheel. And of course, from a technical standpoint, it's also more impressive than just seeing the open work version of the new caliber for the jumbo. But, you know, horses for courses, as they say. It's surprising I can't find the... Maybe I just put it in my shorts feed on YouTube, which I'm sure you can find. But I'll just share a few pieces that I've been putting on Instagram. I don't know where we left. I don't really remember. But I was just I'll just take you through a few. Simone Inzaghi, who is the manager of Internazionale, which is the other team in Milan, who are almost sure to win the Scudetto this year. He recently became 48 years old, and as a real Italian should, he's wearing the old school Kermit, the 50th anniversary Submariner, reference 16610LV. I thought that was really cool and interesting. I want to know what you guys think about the Smurf, honestly. Hey, Tim G, nice to see you. And Loose Tooth, nice to see you too, man. Please hit the like button while you're at it. Yeah, I wanted to see, please write in the chat what you think of the Smurf. I've always thought that this was it when it came to the white gold Submariner. I really liked that it had a blue dial to match the blue ceramic bezel, much like how the white gold version of the John Mayer Daytona has to live in the shadow of the green dial yellow gold. This piece has long lived in the shadow, I would say, especially after the discontinuation of the Hulk, right? The 116610 LV. But I think there's something quite captivating about this. I know for a very short time period, they used that matte blue dial for the yellow gold bluesies as well, the two-tone and the full yellow gold. But people were up in arms, so the sunburst dials came back for the two-tone as well as the yellow gold sub, but it was here to stay for what was one of the first examples of a Submariner with a ceramic bezel. And I kind of think there is something more special about this compared to what they have in the lineup now, the so-called Cookie Monster 126619 LB. This is a pristine example that I took a look at in the Christie's auction preview. And I think it was part of the pieces that is coming up in Geneva on May 13th. And it's been almost 4 years now since it was discontinued. Hey, Captain. Captain says, I love the Smurf, a member of the channel. I really appreciate you, Captain. The Hulk and Smurf are offered at the same time. The Submariner lineup needs something new. Yeah, that's what we were talking about in the comments, right? I think both are really special, and it's mind-blowing now to think back to the era that the two were contemporaries in the Rolex lineup, right? They had a lot of special Submariners, but you know, Rolex is like that. When things get too hot, sometimes they want to take the heat off a little bit. But as Captain is implying, I think it's about the right time to inject some new blood, some new energy to the Submariner lineup, because it is really receding into the shadow of the more popular sports models. Daytona, of course, took up the flagship position a long while ago now, but certainly solidified that status since 2016, you know, with the introduction of the ceramic bezels. And the GMT Master, again, perhaps still riding on the wave of that early introduction of the ceramic bezel for that line and the colorful aesthetic. The GMT Master 2 also, in a way, superseded the Submariner. And it kind of pains me to say that as a Submariner fan more than anything. I'm wearing my sub now on a leather strap just to spite the fools who say that a dive watch couldn't be worn on a leather strap. But honestly, I'm not sure if Rolex makes or sells more GMT Masters than Submariners. I highly doubt that, but I know kind of on the mainstream collectors' consciousness and the market, obviously the GMT Master 2 is a more aspirational and a more demanded watch. So it's about time that Rolex does something about it to tilt the scale a little bit in the direction of the Submariner. This is just something that came across my desk. It's Michael Imperioli as Chris Moltisanti wearing a Nike tracksuit suit with a short sleeve top, as if to make it easier to spot, as if to make it easier to expose that Tank Française that he is wearing on his wrist. I believe it is the large size because there are two rows of diamonds on each side flanking the dial. I'm still waiting for my friend St. Peter to do this watches and of the Sopranos episode with me. Hopefully we will get that done before the 25th anniversary year concludes. St. Peter, where are you? Come back. But I think his love affair with Cartier is one of my favorite things. My favorite watch story. Okay, I'm getting carried away from the Sopranos. We will have to save that for the episode because it's a little more interesting. So that's something beautiful, and I'm just gonna drop the link in the chats so you guys can maybe like some of those posts. I love it. Reaper says, tomorrow in Miami, I will do a live stream from the Pride Parade. Amazing. That's great, Reaper. Loose Tooth says, the flat blue dial of the Smurf was always more attractive. Interesting. I think it's more original and I like it. I think there's nothing wrong with the Sunburst Blue. I like it in the Submariner. I like it in the 116509, the Daytona. But all of that makes this so much more special to me because it stands out in actually being more subtle, which is the kind of contradiction that I like. In that same Christie's preview, I had the chance to look at an example from the original limited run of the tributes to astronauts. These were the watches that Omega released to celebrate the success of the Apollo mission, to celebrate the realization, as it were, of JFK's emphatically stated goal of landing a man on the moon. And they basically made a run of 1,014 pieces in 18-karat yellow gold with these beautiful champagne dials and onyx markers, burgundy accents, including the inscription on the caseback, as you can see, and the aluminum tachymeter bezel. It was the first time they had made their Speedmaster in gold. It was also, these were also some of the first watches powered by the caliber 861, which was quite new at the time. Numbers 1 and 2 were actually presented to President Nixon and Spiro Agnew at the time, but because they couldn't publicly accept such gifts, these are actually kept to this day in the Omega Museum. Numbers 3 to 28 were presented at a gala dinner on November 25th in 1969 in Houston, Texas, to the astronauts, including some of the deceased who had participated in the missions that led to Apollo 11. Some of those watches came up for sale over the years, especially since 2022. They have been coming up for sale with greater frequency because Wally Schirra's personal example was sold for around 1.9 million US dollars on October 20th, 2022. Later, Gus Grissom's example sold for 375,000. Alan Bean's example sold for 2,500 roundabout, and Ron Evans's example sold for a little less than $300,000 as well. Here's a cool watch that all the cool kids like, but I never quite warmed up to it. You know, to me, it's a little. I mean, with all the things I do, you know, I don't need to say much. I'm wearing a bubblegum pink uh, cable knit sweater. This watch is too dainty for me, too misshapen for me, too out there for me. But I do appreciate it from a design perspective because of how holistic that design is. It was a collaboration between uh, Rupert Emerson and Jean-Jacques Cartier when it was originally designed and released by the London House of Cartier. Um, kind of a freaky product of the swinging 60s out of London, obviously with very clear influences from surrealist art. I love how the clasp itself is seemingly melted and misshapen. Um, Again, I love the integrity of the design with the way that the numerals are placed and stylized, with the way that the case coordinates, or with the buckle, or with the way that the buckle echoes with the shape of the case. Um, but I've never warmed up to it. I never liked it in the pictures. Coming across it a few times, handling it a couple of times, trying to place it on my wrist, it's just not hitting anything for me. It's not really spurring anything for me. And I think, you know, I like the guys. You know, thank you, Mathieu. Uh, on this occasion, who was traveling with the watches, and who's a great expert from Christie's Geneva. I don't know what they were thinking to match this also with that contrived, you know, black strap with contrast stitching. I mean, it's the story of neither fish nor fowl, right? It's if you're gonna choose a black strap, choose something more classical with rounded edges, you know, even maybe glossy. If you are gonna go with something casual, you know, go with like a dark brown or tan. You know, if you have to force contrast stitching into something like this, I really don't think it's this kind of strap fits this watch. But again, you know, for not liking the watch, I seem to have way too many opinions on it. So let me just stop right there. Um, I would really appreciate it, guys, if you could send in some of these questions with super chats. I know I'm shilling, I understand, but when I'm offering my opinion, my 2 cents on a channel like this, I think it's the least I can ask for. Speaking of designs, I really appreciate this, uh, which comes from the Janta brand, from a time where they had for the first time introduced like self-standing boutiques, and the location of that boutique was Rue de la Paix in Paris, and they came up with a dial design that basically reflected uh, the bird's eye view, or at least a section of a bird's eye view of Place de l'Étoile, or CDG, you know, Charles de Gaulle, with its new name. And as you see in this pink gold version, which is much more interesting to me than the white gold version right here, You have alternating lines of pavé diamonds and burgundy or mauve even colored enamel to somehow render elements of that symbolic center of Paris. The jump hour window is eccentrically placed, of course, digital display for that. And those lines actually extend to the lower half of the bezel as if to speak to the integral design of the watch. And the minutes are shown with a retrograde hand on the upper half of that bezel, and they are inscribed in this unique way, parsed out, you might say. And I believe they're actually filled in with a similarly tinted enamel too. Accents of an octagonal shape as well on that déployant buckle, which again speaks to the holistic principle of that design, and that unique œil de perdrix decoration on the Janta movements. And this is once again the white gold version. And that was right here. I have a huge crush on this watch as well. It is the Vacheron Constantin Overseas Ultra Thin Perpetual Calendar. As you guys know, with the recent John Mayer collaboration, AP basically put an end to using their JLC derived movements with the perpetual calendars, which means that in a contemporary watch, to have a piece of that legacy, this particular lineup is one of your only options. You can see this familiar architecture there. Of course, here it carries the hallmark of Geneva, as does the case, and it is wound by this signature oscillating weight of the third generation of Vacheron Constantin Overseas family that takes its design from a windrose, partially open worked, variously finished, and in 22 carats gold. This particular example of the watch is in pink gold with that ink blue dial. This is the reference 4300V. It's only 8.10 millimeters thick. I think I need to take off this sweater. It's getting hot. All right, there we are. We're back. I hope you can hear me. Let me know if you guys can hear me. This was Exterius. Thank you so much. YB, your thoughts on the 1940s CK 2451. Let's pull up. I love these Omega chronographs preceding the Speedmaster as well. A lot of them, like the CK 2451, has that heritage, has that mechanical heritage of the Lemania CH27 base. Of course, at that time, Omega and Lemania had a joint venture along with Tissot called SSIH, not to be confused with SIHH, which is the basis of what we know as Watches and Wonders today. So Lemania CH27 was very quickly adapted by a series of Omega chronographs, which rendered it as Omega caliber 321. That was actually the movement that powered the Moonwatch, that was the beating heart of the Moonwatch. As I just mentioned, when we were talking about the Tribute to Astronauts watch, the 861 and its derivatives were introduced by Omega in the wake of the moon landing. So those come later, even though especially the 861 really rode on the wave of that success, of that hype. Wait, am I muted? Am I? No, I don't think I'm muted. You're fucking with me, Van. Someone else would have said something, and I'm sure Dexterius would have complained by now to get value for his money. But I love these. You know, the thing, again, I'm just putting it out there, right? You know, I don't, well, what the hell? I mean, people call me hater for less, and I think I do have a case here. You have a 40s chronograph. It has a black dial. It's produced somewhere in Switzerland by any one of these brands. You know, it can be Omega, it can be Universal Genève, it can be Longines, it can be anything. Chances are that it was a military commission, that it was sold to a military, and chances are that may have been the Nazis. Just putting it out there. And I've heard many stories about Omega not being particularly forthcoming with archival details and you know, point of sale kind of information, which they otherwise freely provide for other watches with their archival extracts. I'm not going to get into the whole debate about how legitimate the archival extracts are in the first place. Having said that, having put that aside, I really like the aesthetic of the CK2451. It is everything a pre-moon Speedmaster is, from a mechanical standpoint, from a horological perspective. The only thing that might hold you back from these kinds of watches would be the case size, because it's like I think it's 35. It scales right under 36, but I want to say 35. So that's practically the only thing that's that might hold one back. That's the only thing that might hold one back from a piece like this. Dr. Bob's Nightmare. I missed you on the premiere of that video on the tourbillon, but I did respond to your question in the comments of that video, so feel free to check it out and leave a comment yourself. Moon landing was fake, Van Luck says. Dr. Bob's Nightmare says moon landing, green cheese. I like to say it's Stanley Kubrick's most successful movie, but we'll leave that discussion to another occasion, perhaps. So that's my take on the 40s Omega chronograph, CK2451, which is powered by the Omega 321, that legacy movements, which was also the beating heart of the Moonwatch. I think those watches are stunners. Incidentally, the black dial versions are usually much more aesthetically appealing, but they can have a certain kind of provenance too, which you may or may not want to stay away. Just putting it out there. Some of you may know that the Octa chronograph is my favorite Jean watch of all time. It was made in such a small period, in such a minuscule time window, that there are not many examples to talk about. I think it's about 313 pieces overall. And because it got discontinued so early on, this is incidentally one of those pieces that have less examples with pink gold movements than those with brass movements, which is very strange and kind of a mind-blowing information if you are the sort of nerd that I am when it comes to these things. This is even more rare among all the variants. There is a sincere fine watches version, no, sincere watches version that has brass movements and a mother of pearl dial. Very special, 6 examples, not aesthetically pleasing in my humble opinion, but it is out there. This was made for the Chicago-based retailer called Swiss Fine Timing in 8 examples. It also had a companion piece, which had a similar exotic dial configuration for a chronomètre souverain. And it kind of has the aesthetic of a Paul Newman exotic dial, right? With that white gold dial against a black backdrop and red accents. It kind of rehearses in equal measure, as it were, the two variations, the two versions, let's say, of the panda and reverse panda of the Paul Newman exotic dial. It is in platinum. The bolted on dial is in white gold. The hands are made of stainless steel and heat blued. And apparently, I haven't found a picture of these, but there were also 8 examples of a wall clock that I'm assuming was styled more like the chronomètre Souverain. But I have not seen it. One of the reasons that I like the octachronograph, and I showed you this with the video of Michael Schumacher's own example from the Ruthenium collection. It has the flyback functionality. I always love grand date, so to speak, an oversized expression of a 2-digit date display. It's also quite remarkable that the movement has 5-day autonomy, 120 hours of a power reserve. All in all, 10.6 millimeters thick, which for a movement like this, again, self-winding chronograph with more than 120 hours of power reserve, added flyback functionality, it's quite remarkable. Of course, the centigraph replaced the octachronograph in the lineup, but this is still my favorite. And in this unique rendition, I like it even more. Dexterius says for the Omega CK 2451, I am considering a white dial. Thank you so much. Dexterius, you're a member of the channel as well. Thank you so much for your generosity. Canadian is amazing. Yeah, I like Canadians. I don't know, I might have a very special Canadian listener who tunes in sometimes. Sometimes. I think they are, they're not as much interested in watches as we are as horological degenerates. We are looking at another amazing piece. This is one of those cloisonné enamel dial Rolex pieces that are more rare than hand's teeth. It's an Oyster Perpetual 6100 in 18 karat yellow gold. So it's 34 millimeters, very much the classical dress watch sizing. And it has this family crest in the middle, which has the aesthetic of the De Clerc family's crest, with the fleur de lis replacing one of the stars. But the work, my God, this is the kind of métier d'art, the rare handcrafts creations that these days you really only see with Patek and with very niche independent makers. In that mid-century period, this watch itself is from around 1952. The Sternfrère or Sternkreation was commissioning this kind of work for makers like Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, SK, Omega, and others. And they have done some brilliant work, as you can see, for Rolex as well. This is by an artist called Margriet Koch. And she had many special creations herself. The most important which is perhaps the tropical dial Patek Philippe Calatrava 2481, who tropical as in it depicts a tropical scene, not the kind of mostly damaged dials that some dealers are trying to push on you. And I really admire this kind of work because, again, it comes from a time where there's no computer-aided design. So the artists would actually sketch these out. And in fact, in preparation of the cloisonné and enamel work, they would even paint the whole thing in miniature, in watercolor, to serve as a model. And without even getting into the kiln firing process, where the rejection rates are quite high, the fine hairline threads of gold with which they outline the design. This is just art. There's so much elegance, art, and history condensed in a wristwatch right under 34 millimeters there. So I really liked handling this as well. And I think this is one of the pieces that is coming up this spring at Christie's as well. I want to say it's in Geneva, but I might be mistaken as well. It may have been New York. But I will double check and I will fix that if necessary. This is something I came across in a thrift shop. Loyal members of the audience will remember that our friend wristwatchholic Alex had shared his Vacheron Constantin belt with us previously as part of an unboxing here. It was something that the brand gifted him upon purchasing the overseas dual time with the blue dial. It was a blue belt to go with it, with that very distinctive Maltese cross style buckle. I found this suede belt in the women's section of a fancy thrift shop here in Southern California, and it was just hard to miss once you've seen it, hard to leave behind. But there it is. That is a Vacheron Constantin belt that I'm sure they still give out to VIP customers as gifts. It's a strap for Archie's wrist. Why not? Oh, Dr. Bob's Nightmare says about the previous piece, I see two cocks fighting. Yeah, you can see it like that, I guess. There's a knight's helmet. There's a badge in red and gold, basically, like a very deep yellow, 2 stars, fleur de lis. And I think that's mostly a floral design with the same combination of colors that, yeah, might actually resemble 2 fighting roosters, but I think it's just a floral, it's just a flourish, let's put it like this. Um, Patel Philippe, Lord told me he would do earlier shows. Hey, I might. I might. By the way, guys, feel free to vote in feel free to vote in the poll. I will do earlier shows starting with May for sure. That's my promise because it will be full time. Hobem, by the way, as an answer to your question with my broken Persian, that's as much as I can muster. Yeah, this could be a strap for Big Boy's wrist. And in fact, someone was trying to buy it off me already. Um, but I thought of it as a gift to a friend, actually. So, but yeah, someone was literally saying, I would love to. And in fact, that person is right here. He was saying, I would totally make an oversized Bund style strap for a watch with this. So, I guess that's going to be for a big boy as well. So that's the PST. PST, Dr. Bob's Nightmare. Thank you for $2. Patel Philippe, another 2 Canadian. Oh my God, Canadians do really love me. Real talk. Okay, well, look, I'm biased because I'm vegan. So korme sabzi, you can at least make into a vegan version, whereas yeah, korme sabzi you can easily make vegan, whereas juje torsh you can. I mean, I guess you can find some sort of chicken alternative to make it. So yeah, it's not fair to ask these kinds of questions to a vegan. Not that it's a terrible injustice to the vegan, don't take me wrong. I think it's an injustice to the food because obviously I will go with something that I can actually eat. And I love spinach. I love dishes that have spinach. I love dishes that have eggplants. And no, that's not a euphemism for something else. I love stuff that has zucchini as well. Those are probably my favorite 3 vegetables. I hesitate to count potatoes as vegetables because God knows I like potatoes as well, especially when they're fried. But that's not really fair. Yes, sir. I did Van Lux. I could certainly go for some korma sabzi right now. Chicken alternative, never caged, never caged juje tosh. I think this can be our. Yeah, I'm more of a hummus person than baba ganoush, Dr. Bob's, but I like baba ganoush as well. You roast those eggplants before you do anything with them. I recently made some pasta with red sauce where I used um, these nicely and thinly cut discs of eggplants and fried them before I served it on the pasta with some red sauce. it was just delicious, man. Eggplant, you can cook it so many different ways, and it always comes out so beautifully and so tasty. It's like, yeah, it's like meat for us, um, for us vegans. This is an amazing patek. Guys who know their horological history would know, or at least recall, that this reference, the 2526, is actually the first self-winding watch produced by Patek in series. Patek at the time took the development of this movement, the movement that powered this watch, very seriously. They didn't make any shortcuts. They didn't cut any corners. So they had more than 2 decades before Rolex's patent for their perpetual mechanism, which still remains their word for a full rotor self-winding movement. Patek waited until that patent expired, and in 1953, they introduced the reference 2526, the first self-winding Patek, the first automatic Calatrava, as well, of course, powered by 12-600 AT, which is a beautiful movement, by the way, so beautiful that some collectors thought it to be a great injustice to be for it to be hiding under a closed case back. So they actually bespoke Voutilainen et Catin, which is Voutilainen's case making manufacturer. So they commissioned an exhibition case back, a sapphire crystal case back for the movement. This is a view of Gary Getz's 2526 from the back. And through that case back, you can see that exquisitely engraved 18 karat gold, oscillating weight with a PP logo that would, in fact, be the inspiration for Patek's own hallmark, which replaced around year 2009 the hallmark of Geneva. This movement, incidentally, is one that carries the hallmark of Geneva. Beautiful white Geneva stripes on the bridges, impeccable perlage on the base plate, a swan neck regulator, everything that you would associate and expect from Genevan watchmaking at its best. Another distinctive thing about those movements. Hey, thank you so much, man. Please sleep well, sweet dreams, and you have a good rest, as I hope to have a good rest of the show. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, man. Van Lux, I know you're a man after my own heart. I always love a view from the back, for sure. Another great thing about these watches, they came with metal dials as well, but especially early on, they had these enamel dials. This particular combination with the black enamel dial is one of the rarest variants. They also have some off-white dials, a lot of double-signed examples that carry the names of these prestige dealers like Serpico e Laino, Gobbi Milano, and many others. But the black enamel dial is just a beautiful complement to this pink gold example. And you don't even need to know how difficult it is to achieve that sort of pitch black color through the kiln firing process, to appreciate the interplay between those multifaceted obus markers for the hours and that black dial. Very beautiful. This one is going under the hammer Christie's Rare Watches auction on May 13th in Geneva. Did I drop the link? I did. Okay. Okay, last one before we head into the auctions. Please don't forget to vote and hit the like button while you're at it. Let me help choose whether we are going to talk about In Eichen or Sotheby's tonight. This is a recent pickup of a friend of mine, Peter Farisian, who has just added this wonderful Neo Paul Newman Daytona to his collection. He got it from the Real actually, and got a really nice deal for it as well. This is the 116518, not the LN. As you can see, it is the version on leather strap, pre-oyster flex, so to speak, and pre-ceramic bezel as well. I believe it's from year 2006. Great condition. I just think, for the classical elegance that the Rolex Daytona presents to me, this just seems beautifully fitting for it to be presented on a leather strap. And I like that dial, actually. In the previous series, the 116 series of the Daytona, that was one of my favorite dials, along with the, what was it called? Was it called like the Sundust dial that went with the pink gold Daytonas? I like that one as well, but this one is probably my favorite in the precious metal series, at least. It's a pretty good one. Well, the meteorite ones are pretty good as well in the white gold when the pattern kind of comes out right. Anyway, I love this watch as well. And as I told Peter in person, Peter, my friend, wear it in great health and wealth. I know you are out at a dinner right now, so you're probably not listening, but hey, thank you for letting me shoot it. I appreciate you. Let me check the voting situation. That wrist is a hey, Dr. Bombs, you may be right, man. You may be right. I mean, I'm not the biggest guy, but I'm tall enough that if I were to run in the forest naked, that people might actually mistake me for the Bigfoot, because I'm hairy as fuck. Oh my god, man. So you are absolutely right. So let's look at the voting situation. Again, if you are not yet following me on Instagram, I would really appreciate that. You know how these things work? It's a viral thing. If you use Instagram in any way, just one follower there might connect me to a bunch of different people, and back and forth. It really helps us expand the community. So it's really helpful. So if you are not following me yet, I'm there as well at young.brando there, at youngbrando here. You know the name. And let's take a look at the auctions and the voting situation. Okay, ending the poll. People want me to look at the Sotheby's Geneva. It was 81% to 18, so that's a crushing majority. Bruce G, nice to see you, my man. Ooh, let's make sure I open the right one. Yes. All right, so let me share the link. This is, I think this is just part of the important watches auction at Sotheby's that is going to take place on May 12th. The hidden collection. I don't know to whom this collection belongs, but there's some amazing pieces, one of which I used immediately as my thumbnail. Ooh, excuse me. So this is actually already quite rare, as you can see, because it's a platinum, ultra thin perpetual calendar from AP with that famous hand-hammered Tuscan dial. It's a reference 25657 PT, having grown out of the legacy of the 5548, that ultra-thin self-winding perpetual calendar that is set to have rescued AP, sustained the brand with the sales during some of the darkest times in the aftermath of the quartz crisis. Beautiful classic round case with relatively short lugs, slightly downturned, stepped bezel, 36 millimeters in diameter. Here the case is in platinum, again, to repeats. I always loved the balance of the dial, and if the 4 subdial look or the 3 calendrical subdials with the aperture with the cutout for the moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock, which gives an almost perfectly symmetrical visual outlook to the watch face. Usually the calendrical hands are heat blued when they are against a white dial. In this case, of course, they are rendered in rhodium plated for that contrast. And you can see how natural, how organic the hand-hammered finish looks on that classic Tuscan dial. And I like how the minute track is in another finish, is in another shade of blue, which adds to the multidimensionality of that dial. This is apparently the number one of the series, of this series, with the platinum and that dial, the 25657. As you can see, this is an ultra thin piece. It is powered by that legacy movement 2120 line 2800s, the JLC caliber 920 derived ultra thin perpetual calendar mechanism, which AP only very recently retired in its most modern guise, with the collaboration they did with John Mayer. The watch is altogether right around 7.5 millimeters thick, maybe 7.6 millimeters. And you can see it has an absolutely sleek side profile. This is the number one in the series for that piece. There are only 128 of these pieces produced in platinum to begin with. So it's already quite rare beyond being the number one in that series. Apparently, this particular example comes from the first owner. As you saw, it's in very good condition with the blue Tuscan dial. Really amazing piece from around 1982. And the pre-auction estimates is between 20,000 to 40,000. Who is Sotheby? And I don't know. I don't know anything about basketball. I wish I could help you there. I really have no clue. I have no clue what you're talking about. Look at this other number one. Wow, wow, wow. So you guys know the first Royal Oak offshore, which was Emmanuel Gates' derivation or of Gérard Janta's design language. It was official in 1993 with a complication that had not yet made its way to the Royal Oak collection at the time. That was a chronograph. The reference the reference 25721, of course, was introduced in stainless steel first. This is number one of the Platinum series. Petite tapisserie dial, which has that distinctive chapter ring, inclined for the tachymeter. The 6-9-12 configuration, a 12-hour counter at 6 o'clock, a 30-minute totalizer at 9 o'clock, and the continuous running seconds at 12. Of course, there's a centrally deployed chronograph seconds hand as well. A date window at 3 o'clock, with a magnifier over it, which is basically the inversion of a Rolex Cyclops, right? So it's not on the crystal, but inside it. And of course, as always, it's kind of excessively branded as AP does it. Right next to that date window, you have both the brand signature and the two initials that make up the name, the two initials, pardon me, of the two founding families. Of course, one of the distinctive things about the Beast, about the Royal Oak Offshore, were these rubber accents, the exposed rubber gaskets under the octagonal bezel, the pushers, as well as the crown, also have those rubber accents. And as you can see on the case back, this is the number 1 of the series in platinum. Thank you, Gundog. 521 Taipei, our auction watches serviced as is or working. Usually, if they are not working at all, they usually put them through the paces and give it like a, standard service for, in-house. A lot of times, if they go through the trouble, and they do, and they add a premium for it, they usually source recently serviced examples, and those come with the papers. And a lot of time they just say as is, but the watch is in running condition. That's the great majority of the watches, to be honest. So it's a toss-up. It varies, and you have to see it in the lot essay. You have to make sure. Sometimes they note it. If they haven't noted it, I would always reach out and confirm. This particular piece actually comes with box and papers, includes the certificate of origin, has a digital extract from the archives that comes with it, and it's basically a full set with the additional links, the presentation case and other packaging, all the booklets, the product literature. It's, what can I say? The first platinum example of the original Royal Oak Offshore, reference 25721 PT, the Beast in platinum. The estimated value of the watch is somewhere between 100,000 to 200,000 in Swiss francs. If my friends, I love Maldives, is in the audience still, he'll love this. There is a very rare version of the Nautilus moon phase that has, of course, over time become a fan favorite. Some came to love, finally, the asymmetric dial layout. Others are captivated by the romanticism of the moon phase as a complication. And yet others appreciate how, thanks to the micro-rotor movement, this watch remains incredibly slim, even with the added complication. I mean, the 3712 is still 8 millimeters thick, which, of course, is actually thinner than the 5711. Of course, the 5712 is a little thicker than both of them. the easiest way of telling apart a 3712 from the 5712 is the 3 red dots on the power reserve. It had a production run of basically a year, if not under a year. It was introduced in 2005. This continued with the introduction of the 5712 in 2006 for the 40th anniversary of the Nautilus design. It's estimated that within that time period, there were about 1,700 of these produced, could be even less. Sorry, I don't know why I said 40th anniversary. It was the 30th anniversary in 2006 when the 5712 was introduced. Other details, the crown is slightly larger. There is an abbreviated index at 7 o'clock. The center links of the bracelets are a little different. I think, I want to say off the top of my mind, these are a little more rounded, the links. This is a factory sealed example. Comes with the full sets of its accessories, box and papers. As you can see, 521 Taipei, there's a condition report that you sometimes have to request. Other times it's right here, movement running at the time of cataloging, case in excellent condition, dial, excellent condition, factory seal, so on and so forth. So sometimes this information is included, other times it isn't. This is a reference of an example of the reference, the rare reference 3712 line 1A, Patek Philippe Nautilus moon phase from year 2005 with its distinctive asymmetric dial layout and the sleekness that it preserves with its complication, despite its complication, I should say, with the help of the microrotor movements. The estimated value here is somewhere between 150,000 to 250,000, $250,000 in Swiss francs. Gun Dog reminds everyone to upvote. I guess there's a no return policy. That also depends on the auction house and what kind of customer you are and whether they will need to appease you. It is what it is. All right, another interesting piece. the Patek 2499 J with the Tiffany co-signature within the moon phase indicator at 6 o'clock, within the pointer date, you might also say. $24.99 is the second in line of those illustrious perpetual calendar chronograph references from Patek Philippe. The 1518, of course, is the granddaddy of all, the first serially produced perpetual calendar watch introduced by Patek Philippe in 1941. Although I have to say, with all the beauty and even the added rarity of the 1518, a lot of modern collectors sway towards the 2499 because of the relatively modern sizing. I think it's like 37, like it's right under 38 millimeters, I think. And the case design is, I mean, one of the most beautiful ever, most certainly. I'm not trying to exaggerate. I'm not trying to really do an exercise in hyperbole here, but the lugs especially are most sensual. And here you have a beautifully preserved example where you can see the different kinds of finishing, make sense of the stepped structure of those lugs, and see how nicely they curve down. Those pieces are very desirable, especially in this kind of condition, without, looking for a double signature or anything of the sort, which is actually provided here as well, and by none other than perhaps what is the most emblematic retailer of Patek Philippe, and that is Tiffany and Company, that is still headquartered in New York. Of course, they have been owned by LVMH, Moët Hennessy, Louis Vuitton for quite some time already, but they still have that Patek Philippe boutique in their flagship store in New York. I don't even know who they sell to, what their clientele is, who really helps them run that boutique at this point. But it is what it is. 2499 actually stayed in production for about 35 years. I think it was made in less than 350 examples, which makes it about 9 pieces per year. It's still extremely rare, and this kind of example that has an additional signature on the dial, it's really, really fascinating. This piece, again, actually comes with a Patek Philippe service invoice from 1984. And as a corollary, as a corollary to that, there's a great letter which should serve as a certificate of authenticity. You might even call it um, an archival extract of sorts, addressed to one Mr. Ottmar Stadler in Zurich. It provides the caliber number, case number, specifies the dial, confirms the date of manufacture or year of manufacture is 1985, and confirms again sold by Ari Stern Watch Agency, which is Patek Philippe Americas, based in New York. That's where Tiffany & Co. would have gotten it on October 14th, 1965. Signed by Gerald Kellerhals, again, written in German, an official letter from Patek Philippe certifying the authenticity of this watch with the particular dial. To me, the font checks out for the time period as well, but identifying different fonts from Tiffany from different time periods is not exactly my expertise. So I would have to defer to someone like Eric Wendt, for example. The estimated value of this piece is set within the range between 700,000 to 1.4 million in Swiss francs. There is actually another 24.99 from around the same time period, third series, again in yellow gold. As you see, the Tiffany one had feuille hands, leaf-shaped hands, and baton markers, and an English calendar. And this one, seemingly a French calendar, Dauphine hands, Taipei says, 521 Taipei says, I prefer the vintage Patek font compared to modern fonts. I can't disagree with you. I think these watches just ooze with a lot of vintage charm and authenticity. I mean, it's, look, I'm not saying that contemporary Patek doesn't have its appeal, but you know, there's something special about these watches. There's a reason that people have been collecting them for decades before the mainstream watch collectors forget about the mainstream of pop culture caught up with how cool Patek is. Um, Beautiful third series silver dial here. Again, multifaceted baton hands, sorry, baton index markers applied. Of course, all the hands match the yellow gold tones of the case, except for the chronograph hands. And by that, I mean the counter for the 30-minute totalizer and the centrally deployed chronograph second. Those are fashioned out of stainless steel and heat tempered into this cornflower blue, which jumps out against the backdrop of that silver dial and certainly distinguishes itself against the gold furniture of the dial. And once again, it is really a joy to see those stepped lugs full frontal and also from the profile where they have very sensual downward curvature. In 1965, third series, Patek Philippe reference 2499J, a perpetual calendar chronograph in yellow gold with a pre-auction estimate set between 300 to 500,000 Swiss francs. By the way, we have about half an hour more. I might stay with you a little bit longer, but please hit the like button. If you have any watch-related questions, anything at all, or if you want me to take a look at a watch, any watch from this auction or beyond, feel free to send your request in with a super chat and I would be more than happy to dive right in and explain that watch to you with as much horological and historical detail as I could muster. This is an independent channel. It only works for its audience to share the knowledge of and passion for wristwatches, expanding the community as far and wide as possible. So spread the word, hit the like, comment on videos. That helps me a great deal. YouTube provides you a lot of other ways to support, including memberships, which give you access to exclusive content, super chats, super stickers, super thanks, if you wish. And there are also other options provided in the description of this video. This watch is also amazing. It might be a little more niche compared to what I showed earlier. An early example of a Lange one, and you know this almost by definition when you see the solid case back. But this one actually comes on the bracelets. This is the reference 101 001. So yellow gold with kind of like a two-tone dial, silvered / champagne, and matching yellow gold hands and dial fixture. Of course, the Lange one was even more of a precursor, even more of a pioneer in throwing an asymmetric dial in front of the people. Of course, there's a method to their madness. There's a mode of organization to this chaos, because from under the hand stack of the off-center dial, from the center of the eccentric subdial for the seconds, located right around 4 o'clock in relation to that off-center dial, And from the top corner at the top corner of one of the guichet, one of the windows of the oversized date display, using those 3 points as a corner, you can draw a perfect triangle, and that would actually cross through exactly where the hand for the power reserve indicator is placed as well. This makes this particular watch, the closed case back, makes this particular watch an early example of Lange 1, very much desired in and of its own regards. In yellow gold, I think that is also quite desirable, not necessarily because of its rarity, but because it is very much of that time period. Apparently, it was Walter Lange's choice of material as well for all his personal Lange watches. So that perhaps speaks to you in some way. And this particular watch actually comes on an integrated bracelet configuration with the bracelets, that chainmail style bracelets made by the famous Pforzheim based German jeweler Wellendorf. Really beautiful piece. Again, from the hidden collection, coming under the hammer for Sotheby's as part of that May 12th auction that's coming up. The pre-auction estimate is set between 50,000 to 100,000 in Swiss francs. Patek Chris, nice to see you, man. I'm not sure, Van Lux. I'm not sure. Obviously, titanium can be, and as you can see, it can be purpled as well, right? Did you see that new De Béthune Purple Rain? That was actually, I'm not saying this ironically, it was probably one of my favorite releases um, from Watches and Wonders. I like the texture of that dial as well, but I love the fact that they are kind of expanding beyond the blued titanium, which is of course their signature, look. I mean, it's basically something that you see on someone's wrist, and on all these different levels, it registers as unique and as immediately recognizable as well. But since they have that, thermal treatment process figured out to a T, why not experiment with it a little bit? And I thought it was quite amazing that they did this as a variant. I think that's great. And as you guys know, you can achieve all these different um, colors as part of that firing process. there's a whole scala, so to speak, from yellow to kind of like a dark yellow, purple when it gets hotter, the blue when it gets a little bit hotter, and then kind of like a slate blue, gray blue, almost like a turquoise shade at an even higher temperature. But yeah, I don't know if white gold can be blued. That's not really something I thought about or asked about, but when I come across the right person, I'll make sure to ask. There's another beautiful perpetual calendar by AP, and this is an example with an open work dial in the Royal Oak case. Royal Oak perpetual calendars are overall very desirable. And this is another platinum piece. This particular collector clearly loved his platinum APs. Reference 25636 PT with the skeletonized dial, which gives you a very nice view of the perpetual calendar module that sits on top of that ultra thin self-winding JLC based caliber. As you can see, elements of the movement are also hand engraved, which is a beautiful detail. Of course, always a sight to see from experts of open working. I like the blued outer discs of those calendrical subdials, which of course go well with the heat blued indicators. The minutes division is also in blue to increase legibility. Classic pencil hands, rhodium plated. The watch is in all platinum case, bracelet, octagonal bezel. Of course, the hexagonal bolts on that octagonal bezel are in white gold, which is part of Royal Oak's origin story. Apparently, when they were prototyping the stainless steel models and soaking them, leaving them in salt water at Le Brassus to test the water resistance and whether it corrodes or not, the stainless steel bolts actually turned out to be not stainless steel after all, not stainless after all. So they were replaced with white golds, which I think ends up being a beautiful detail because against stainless steel, against platinum, and against even white gold, they get this distinct yellowish hue over time, which I think is a very nice contrast that brings out that accent, that detail from the original design. Of course, the open working is just as interesting from behind. Again, these are still quite thin for a perpetual calendar. I think slightly over 9 millimeters. And look at that. A fully open worked oscillating weight with an additional 21 karat gold supplemental weight, hand engraved, and that open working brings the two initials of the two founding families in Gothic fonts to sharp relief. A very early number again, number 16, not number 1 this time. I can do one, Patek Chris, maybe during the weekends. But if you have any questions now, feel free to send them in with some super chats, and I will be more than happy to answer. Again, this is the Sotheby's Important Watches auction that is coming up on May 12th in Geneva. There's a hidden collection that they have actually released within the larger curation, within the larger collection of watches that they will be selling, and I was going through those examples with you. This particular piece, a Royal Oak Perpetual Calendar in platinum with a skeletonized dial with open working, has a pre-auction estimate somewhere between 200,000 to 300,000 in Swiss francs. We are slowly heading towards the end, so I'm gonna choose carefully here. I'm gonna maybe focus on a couple of things that are a little less common. Here's a Frank Müller piece that comes even from before the brand was established. Frank Genève, that's the only way that it is branded. The piece is a grande complication, so to speak. I know some brands have an even higher standard, kind of like everything but the kitchen sink kind of standards to call a piece grande complication. But I think the combination of a perpetual calendar with the chiming function, with the minute repeater, is good enough. It's good enough for Patek. It should be good enough for many others. There are so many things to say about this watch, but I will try to keep it relatively short. The classic case is actually made by Jean-Pierre Agman, who made so many iconic cases for Patek Philippe. A lot of their iconic minute repeater cases, in fact. So this is especially appropriate. The design of it is actually very reminiscent of the Breguet Empire case, which Daniel Roth also successfully translated and transformed into their modern wristwatch aesthetic. But the teardrop lugs and the finely fluted case band are unmistakable aesthetic details. Here, you also have a beautiful double-stepped bezel that makes the design a little more dramatic, I have to say. Here's a look from the other side profile where you can see the slider for the minute repeating functions. This is like a 37.5 millimeter yellow gold case. The silver dial has somewhat evenly patinated, but has taken on this grayish hue. It is beautifully decorated, I must say, with a variety of um, decorations applied by hand-guided rose lathes, which is beautiful. The hands are hands follow that same Breguet style, stainless steel, heat blued, including the calendar indications, which of course play along beautifully with the backdrop of the moon phase indicator as well. Roman numerals on a frosted hour track. I mean, it's circular graining, but a lot of times they call that Breguet frosting. A really beautiful piece that's also signed on the back as number 1. An example of Frank Müller's work as the master of complications before he established his own brand in 1995. Clearly inspired by the Breguet aesthetic, but executed beautifully with his own distinctions, of which the onion crown is another example. Jean-Pierre Agman case, a combination of perpetual calendar with the minute repeater, 37.5 millimeters in yellow gold, and with a pre-auction estimate set within the range between 50,000 to 100,000 in Swiss francs. Good night, Van Lux, and thank you for reminding everyone to upvote. Van Lux says 1 or 7. No, this is a 1. This is a 1. Europeans write 1 with that hook. Would you call that a hook? Sorry, my English is failing a little bit at this time of the night usually, but not as a straight line usually. So that is a 1. A 7 would be more, that line would be more parallel to the imaginary line on which that number sits. But still, good eye. I appreciate that. Wow. It's an amazing watch. I mean, the dial has not necessarily aged in the most appealing manner, but that case is incredible. And you can, even in photographs, you can see the distinction of Hagman case. There's a reason that Recep Recepi commissioned him for his famous chronomètre contemporain and finally brought him in-house. Okay, I think I have time for maybe 2 more watches, so we can continue the theme here. Again, a beautiful perpetual calendar minute repeater, this time from one of the legacy manufacturers, Vacheron Constantin. From the Patrimony series, the reference number is 30020 in platinum. This is a reference produced only in 200 examples. Some came with skeletonized dials, but this is a silver dial. The moon phase indicator has a lapis lazuli background for the night sky. Beautiful heat blued hands for the calendrical indications. There's also a leap year indicator at 12 o'clock, which is surrounded by the months, a pointer date at 3 o'clock, and the day of the week at 9 o'clock. Again, a beautiful case, as you can see from the profile here, with those distinct teardrop lugs. And they're called teardrop lugs because the beauty brings tears to your eyes. Sorry for that cheesy joke, attempt at a joke, I must say. The architecture of the movement is beautiful and reminiscent of classic pocket watch movements with a 3-finger bridge. Beautiful black polished hammers. Swan neck regulator. This caliber, when it was first released, was actually the world's thinnest repeater. The movement at that time, which was 3.28 millimeters, was the world's thinnest repeater. And this particular reference, the 30020, was a first for Vacheron Constantin because even though it was inspired by their own vintage reference 4261, that combined a triple calendar, a full calendar with a minute repeater, whereas this reference, for the first time in Vacheron Constantin's history, combined a perpetual calendar with a minute repeater. This watch comes with a Vacheron Constantin archival extract, as you can see, a minute repeating perpetual calendar from the Patrimony series in platinum, reference 30020, silver dial, lapis lazuli night sky for the moon phase indicator from year 2004. The pre-auction estimate is set in the range between 120,000 to 240,000 Swiss francs. Thank you for the upvote, Chris. I appreciate you. All right, the last watch of the day. This is a very special Rolex Daytona, Rolex Cosmograph Daytona with the Paul Newman exotic dial, the Panda version, reference 6265, meaning that it has the stainless steel bezel for the tachometer that matches the case, and it combines that with screw down pushers. But this is in fact even more special, because in the 1970s, a small batch of watches bearing the logo, the so-called mystery cross, were commissioned by none other than the Swiss Foundation of Alpine Research. It was actually our own periscope, Jose Perez, periscope, friend of the channel. You guys know we even have a series, a playlist called Diving Deep with Periscope on the channel, so feel free to check that out. I will actually put the link in the chat. People thought it was just a mystery cross, a mysterious case back engraving, but actually Jose Perez, friend of the channel, Periscope, uncovered the story behind these watches, as he usually does. They were identified with the Swiss Foundation for Alpine Research. This particular example apparently comes from the original owner, from the family of the original owner. And the estimated value of the piece is set right between $250,000 to $500,000 in Swiss francs. Okay. With that, I'm almost ready to say goodbye, but I will remind you once again, this is a completely independent channel, your independent voice, always on the lookout for you, so you can get the best value with your money, whether you're buying on retail or on the secondary markets. I'm not a shill for any gray market profiteer. I'm not in the pocket of anyone in the industry, not a brand. I always use auction previews as an occasion to educate. And as you see, for the most part, beyond the ultra rare watches, I always direct you to more reasonably priced examples. I think when you're armed with the knowledge, when you learn some of these distinctive details, and especially when you have an expert like me, a consultant like me on your side, you, with the right patience as well, you can always source even better examples at an even more attractive price on the secondary markets for the most part. But sometimes things do slip through the cracks. There are some interesting deals in the auctions as well, and those I always underline. At any rate, all of this is a long way of saying that I do depend on your support. That can be as little as hitting the like button, upvoting the stream, leaving a comment once the live stream ends. So this content gets in front of more people, catches more eyeballs. If you have somehow chanced upon this live stream, feel free to subscribe. I have watch-related content basically every day. Beyond that, if you could spread the word, send the link to as many people as possible so we can expand this community that comes together for the knowledge of wristwatches and our passion for them. Otherwise, YouTube provides you different ways of supporting the channel. Of course, memberships are available at a very reasonable rate at the entry level, which of course gives you access to an ever-expanding archive of exclusive contents. And again, I'm going full-time in May, so there will be much more. And everything that you give to the channel has always come back to you in terms of quality and quantity of content. So I appreciate your presence and support. Thank you so much, Dexterious, for another super sticker, which gives me the thumbs up. I really, really appreciate you. I will wish everyone a good night then. I hope I will see you in the next one. But until then, in either case, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. Thank you, Dexterious, for your multiple contributions. Patel Philippe, Tan, Dr. Bob's Nightmare. Thank you so much for all my Canadian friends and others for your support. Love you all. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.